I used to think anniversaries were like mile markers on a highway, evidence that you're still moving forward, even if the road gets a little bumpy. 5 years into my marriage, that idea was starting to unravel like an old sweater. The thing about unraveling is that it doesn't happen all at once. It starts with one tiny loose thread. I just hadn't noticed mine until it was too late. My name's Nathan, and this is how I found out that my wife, Brielle, wasn't just slipping away, she was running into someone else's arms. It started with a trip. Ironically, it was supposed to be a gift from me to her. Brielle had always talked about wanting to learn survival skills, something about connecting with the earth, grounding herself. I figured a weekend wilderness retreat would be the perfect surprise. She needed the break. We both did. Work, life, the monotony of routine, it all had this way of draining color from our lives. So I signed her up for a 3-day survival course in the Cascade Mountains. She'd be out of cell range, disconnected from the world, and I'd get some time to catch up on work deadlines. It sounded like a win-win. I dropped her off that Friday morning. She was wearing those hiking boots she hardly used and had her dark hair pulled into a tight braid. She looked beautiful, in that natural, no-fuss kind of way she always had when she wasn't trying. I kissed her goodbye at the trailhead. She smiled, touched my face like she used to, and said, "I love you." I told her I'd be there Monday at noon to pick her up. I don't know when I first noticed the shift, but I remember the feeling the moment she got back in the car that Monday afternoon. It wasn't anything she said. It was everything she didn't. Her voice had changed somehow, lighter, detached. Her stories about the retreat came in fragments. She mentioned fire making, shelter building, group hikes, but never the people. That was odd for Brielle. She always talked about people. "Did you meet anyone interesting?" I asked as I navigated the winding road back into town. She shrugged. "Just the usual mix. A few couples, some solo folks. The instructor was cool. Name was Logan. Ex-military, I think. That was the first time I heard his name. Logan." There was a slight tremor in her voice when she said it. Barely there. But my gut noticed. Over the next few weeks, things got different. Brielle was more animated, more focused on fitness, constantly reading wilderness books and watching videos on firecraft or edible plants. She'd get these faraway looks when she thought I wasn't watching. She also stopped initiating intimacy. Claimed she was tired, or sore from, hiking the local trails. Which, to be fair, she had started doing often. Alone. I tried to be supportive. Maybe it was a phase. Maybe she'd found something that brought her joy, and I was just being paranoid. But there's a quiet kind of terror that settles in your chest when your partner starts to feel like a stranger in your own home. The final crack came one Saturday when she said she was going back to the retreat center for a follow-up day course. Nothing overnight, just a daytime wilderness navigation refresher. She kissed me goodbye that morning, said she'd be back by dusk. She wasn't. By 9 p.m., I was pacing the house. No texts. No calls. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I debated calling the retreat center, but I didn't want to seem controlling. So I waited. At 11:12 p.m., she walked through the front door, cheeks flushed and hair damp. She was wearing a different shirt than the one she left in. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she gasped. My phone died, and the group went longer than expected. Logan, the instructor, gave a few of us a ride back after dinner. Dinner? I nodded slowly, trying not to react. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said too quickly. "I'm just exhausted." She didn't meet my eyes, just headed upstairs and shut the bathroom door. I stared at the closed door, listening to the shower run. Something in me cracked open that night. The next morning, I checked her phone while she was in the shower. I'm not proud of that, but curiosity had mutated into something else, something that needed answers. Her messages were mostly clean, except for one name that kept showing up in her recent calls. L. It wasn't saved as Logan, but I wasn't an idiot. A week later, I followed her. She said she was going hiking alone, said she needed space to think. I waited 20 minutes, then drove to the trailhead and parked 2 rows over. From a distance, I saw her arrive and step out of the car. She wasn't alone. He was already there. Tall, lean, with sun-weathered skin and a backpack slung over one shoulder like it weighed nothing. He didn't say anything, just took her hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. She leaned into him, and they disappeared into the trees together. I didn't follow. I just sat there for an hour, staring at the forest that swallowed them whole. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and the sun had started its slow descent. I felt hollow. Like the man I had been, the husband, the provider, the believer in their love story, had just evaporated in the summer air. I drove home without a word. She came back around sunset, cheeks glowing and eyes distant. I didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't offer. We both went to bed that night in silence. Only one of us slept. I wish I could say I confronted her right away. I wish I had stormed into the forest that day, pulled her from his arms, and demanded answers. But that's not how it happened. Not with Brielle. Not with us. Because it was never about just the betrayal. It was about the slow death of something I didn't even know was dying until it was already cold. After I saw them together, something inside me fractured in a very quiet way. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even bring it up. I just started watching. She noticed, of course. A few days later, she asked, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." I forced a smile. "Just work stuff." She nodded like she accepted that, but I think we both knew it was a lie. That week, I started doing things I never thought I'd do. I checked her Google Maps history. I watched our shared calendar for any hints, odd gaps, vague events like errand or solo hike. I even followed her again once. It felt pathetic and beneath me, but I couldn't help it. This time, I stayed closer. They met at a state park about 40 minutes from home. I parked near the ranger's lot and walked a trail that gave me a partial view of the fire pit where they sat. Logan had his shirt off. She sat next to him like she belonged there. Not in a teenage, reckless way, but with the comfort of someone who had been doing this long enough to know how to breathe easy in stolen moments. I saw her reach for his hand. He kissed her temple. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the quiet hum of the fan ticking like a bomb waiting to go off. I didn't know how to approach it. I didn't want some blowout that would leave us both gutted. I wanted to understand how the woman I loved, who once cried during dog food commercials, could be this calculated. The next day, I set a plan in motion. I called in a favor from a friend of mine who worked in private security. Told him I needed help with a delicate domestic matter. Within a week, he'd installed a discreet tracking system on Brielle's car and gave me an app that let me monitor her location in real time. I hated that I was doing it, but I hated not knowing more. The first few days, the ping showed harmless destinations. Grocery store, gym, her favorite coffee shop. Then on Thursday, she told me she was meeting a friend from college for lunch in the city. 2 hours later, her tracker put her parked at a trailhead 20 miles outside of town. Not the city. Definitely not lunch. I didn't follow this time. I didn't need to. I had confirmation. That night, as we ate takeout on the couch, I watched her eyes as she laughed at a sitcom rerun. I wondered if she even saw me anymore, or just the space I occupied in her life, like furniture that once meant something but now mostly served as clutter. "Did you have fun at lunch?" I asked casually, stabbing a piece of chicken with my fork. She blinked once. "Yeah, it was nice. Catching up with Melanie. She got promoted." I nodded, glad to hear it. She went back to watching the screen, never noticing the landmine she'd just stepped over. I didn't know what I was waiting for. An apology, an admission, some sign that she was struggling with this double life. But nothing came. In fact, she started getting bolder. She brought books about wilderness survival into the house. Signed up for more courses. She even casually suggested we should do a weekend in the woods together sometime. "That sounds great," I said, even though I knew she didn't mean it. She was testing me, seeing if I'd bite, if I'd follow her into the ruins of what used to be our love. One afternoon, I made a decision. I drove to the retreat center where she'd first met him. I asked questions under the pretense of enrolling. They gave me brochures, talked about group classes, weekend intensives. I asked if Logan was still teaching. "Logan Hale?" the receptionist said. "Yeah, he's one of our senior instructors. Runs the advanced wilderness courses. Ex-ranger. Been with us 2 years now." The name landed like a hammer on my chest. Logan Hale. There it was. The man who'd taken my place, one trail at a time. Before I left, I asked where the next class was meeting. The woman gave me a printed schedule. I circled the date with a pen. It was in 3 weeks. 3 days. Overnight. That night, Brielle brought it up at dinner. "So, I was thinking of doing a longer wilderness retreat next month. Just 3 days. It's part of the advanced series." I looked her dead in the eye. "With Logan?" She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. "It's a group thing," she said cautiously. "I didn't ask about the group. I asked about him." She put down her fork. "Nathan, why are you asking me that?" "I just want to know the truth," I said, keeping my voice level. "Are you sleeping with him?" Silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than any confession. Her eyes brimmed with something between fear and defiance. "It's not what you think. It never is," I said, standing up. "But it always ends the same." She followed me into the living room, arms crossed like she was shielding herself. "Nathan, I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I turned around. "Didn't mean to fall for him, or didn't mean to lie to me every day for the past 2 months." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. And in that moment, I saw the truth, the real truth. It wasn't just about lust. It wasn't just a fling. She'd fallen for him. Deeply. Dangerously. "I'll give you space," I said. "You clearly need it." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to hurt you." Too late. I grabbed my keys and walked out. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Every room smelled like her guilt and my denial. I drove until the city lights turned into silhouettes. Pulled off the highway into a gravel lot, turned off the engine, and sat in the silence. The truth is a funny thing. You think it will shatter you. But what it really does is set you free. I just didn't know what to do with that freedom yet. It's strange what your heart chooses to remember. After I walked out that night, I didn't go home for 3 days. I stayed with a friend, someone who didn't ask questions, just handed me a spare key and a cold beer. I slept on his couch, listened to the quiet hum of his ceiling fan, and let the silence wrap around me like gauze. Brielle texted the next morning. Just 4 words. "Can we talk tonight?" I didn't answer. I needed to sit with the truth for a while. And the truth was this: my marriage had died somewhere between a trailhead and a campfire, and I hadn't noticed the rot until it started smelling like smoke. The last time we really touched each other, was months ago. The last time she looked at me like she used to? I couldn't remember. And maybe that was the worst part. It hadn't ended with a fight or a slammed door. It had ended with stillness, like a candle left to burn out on its own. On the third morning, I went home. The house was clean, too clean. Her hiking boots were by the door. Her backpack leaned against the wall. On the kitchen counter, there was a letter, paper, not a text. In her handwriting. I didn't read it. Not yet. Instead, I walked to our bedroom, opened the closet, and took down the boxes from the top shelf. Old photos. Wedding albums. Birthday cards. All the pieces of our forever in sharp, square fragments. I wasn't angry. Not in the way people expect. No rage, no broken plates, no screaming into the void. Just quiet resignation. I opened the letter finally. Nathan, I didn't want it to happen. I don't expect you to believe that, and honestly, I'm not sure if I believe it myself anymore. Logan made me feel something I thought I'd lost, a kind of aliveness I didn't know I was missing. But I never stopped loving you. I think that's the hardest part. I still love you, but not in the way you deserve. I kept thinking I could come back from this. That I could cut it off, forget it ever happened. But every time I tried, I ended up deeper. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I let it go this far. I didn't have the courage to tell you the truth until you forced me to look at it. I'm staying at a friend's for a while. You don't have to make any decisions now. I'll respect whatever you decide. I just hope, somewhere down the road, you find someone who sees you the way you deserve to be seen. With love, Brielle. I read it once. Then I folded it and slipped it into the drawer of my nightstand. I didn't want to keep it, but I couldn't throw it away either. That night, I drove to the edge of the city, where the forest trails start. The same forest where she disappeared into someone else's arms. The trees were tall and silent, their shadows long in the fading light. I sat on a bench just off the trail and watched as hikers trickled back toward their cars. I half expected to see Logan. Instead, I saw someone else, an older man, maybe in his 60s, standing at the trailhead with a map and a compass. He looked lost, or maybe just tired. I offered to help, and we ended up talking for almost 20 minutes. Turns out, he wasn't lost. He just liked standing still sometimes. Said the world moved too fast, and the forest helped him remember how to slow down. I liked that. I drove home with a strange sense of clarity. Not peace, exactly, but something close to it. The kind of clarity that comes after a storm, when everything's broken and drenched, but you can finally see the sky again. I filed for separation a week later. It wasn't vindictive. There was no courtroom drama, no screaming matches. We met at a coffee shop and talked like two people who once knew each other well, now navigating the terms of a soft landing. She cried. I didn't. Not then. I cried later, though. The night I packed her favorite mug. The one with the faded print of a pine tree and the words, "Go Wild," in cursive. I wrapped it in bubble wrap and put it in the box labeled, Brielle Kitchen. That mug had seen hundreds of mornings. And now it was going somewhere else. It's been 8 months since then. Sometimes, I still catch myself expecting her in the house. A whiff of lavender shampoo, a soft humming from the kitchen. But those moments pass. I've started hiking. Not the intense, survivalist kind, just small walks through local trails. I go alone. At first it felt strange, like I was stepping into her world, trespassing on a life that wasn't mine. But over time, the forest became something else. It became mine too. I've also started writing. Not a novel or anything big. Just notes, thoughts, reflections. things I wish I'd said, things I'm glad I didn't, things I'm still figuring out. And once I wrote this, you don't lose someone all at once. You lose them in glances, in silences, in every little moment where they reach for someone else. And in the end, maybe the real betrayal isn't that they love someone else. Maybe it's that they stopped choosing you. Brielle didn't destroy me. Logan didn't steal my wife. The truth is, we both drifted apart. She just found something wild to run to. I found something else. Stillness. Solitude. The kind of peace that doesn't come from holding on to someone, but from finally letting go. And out here, in the quiet of the trees, I think I'm starting to come back to myself. One step at a time.